Hey guys, so we're back on the X6 today, and we're going to be doing an engine bay detailing and an engine bay degreasing because this N55 leaks a lot of oil, and I cannot pinpoint the leak. So I've gone ahead, taken off the radiator fan and some of the supports on top to get access to the motor from the top and the front, and I've also taken off the under trays and the skid plate to get access to the oil pan from the bottom. Now, this company right here, Superclean, has sent me a bunch of their products. So I'm going to be using their regular degreaser, undiluted, and seeing how much grease and grime this stuff can cut through with just a little bit of agitation and some water. I'm not going to be using a pressure washer. I'm not going to be using a hose. I'm just going to be using a pressurized garden sprayer just to rinse it off. So I'm really relying on the agitation and the chemicals to do its job. Now let's take a look at what we're going to be working with. So from the top, you can see the valve cover gasket is a little bit wet. Well, not wet, but there's some grime on it, and I can't really pinpoint the oil leak there, especially when looking at it from the side of the motor. There's not any oil. Now if we go further down, these are the vanos solenoids, and they're pretty grimy, so that could be a cause. And if you go even further down, the whole front timing cover is soaked with oil. Now, a lot of you guys might guess that it could be the oil filter housing gasket, which is right here. But we've had shops look at it, and we've had one shop replace this stuff, and also you can see that they've used sealant. So we think that this stuff isn't leaking, but it could still be leaking. Now let's take a look at the bottom the best we can. And if you look down here, you can see that the front of the engine, right by where the oil pan is, that is pretty wet, and even the subframe, if we zoom out a little bit, it's pretty wet. Going further back, you'll see more oil pan wetness. Even the drain plug has some drops starting to come down. And if you go all the way to the passenger side of everything, you'll see this oil pan gasket is pretty wet, leading all the way back towards the transmission. So I am guessing most likely that we do have an oil pan gasket leak, unless everything from the front of the motor is leaking so badly that it's just trailing along the oil pan gasket. So let's get a time lapse started, and we'll see how much cleaner that this engine can get. Alright, so you can see I have finished up my degreasing and detailing. So the detailing part was pretty easy. Super clean, spray in the dirty areas, agitate, rinse with the garden sprayer. And as you can see, if you look at like the ABS module, it's pretty clean. Down the sides, it's all clean. Now let's take a look at what we did with the oil leaks. This part I did cheat with the power washer, because the grime was just way too thick. But if you look at it now, the little gap between the valve cover and the cylinder head, clean. You can see the Vano solenoids, clean. And if you go further down, you could see the timing case and the other parts. So, super clean, a lot of agitation, and then a power washer at the very end did a lot of work. So now I can determine where the leak is going to start from, because maybe in 500 miles or so I'll take a peek at this again and determine if it's coming from up top, the solenoids, or maybe even the oil filter housing gasket, which is right here. And as you can see, this area is clean, so this little crevice, that should start gumming up again if it's leaking again. Now let's take a look at the bottom. So there's your oil pan again, and it is much cleaner than before, less grimy. And this is the front of the oil pan. Once again, way less grime. So I can definitely determine if it's the oil pan gasket that is also another cause of the leak. And here's the bottom from another angle. As you can see, looking up into there, I can see the gasket way better, and I can see the pan way better. So if this part starts griming up pretty soon, then I'll also know that I have an oil pan gasket leak. Lastly, here's the skid plate and the plastic under tray. That's the side that faces the engine, and it's much cleaner than before. This is also the other side, just letting it air dry a little bit before I throw it back on the car. Superclean did some good work. I'm very happy. This is probably the cleanest that this has been in many years. So let's get everything buttoned back together and we'll sum everything up. Okay, so like a dummy, I totally forgot to record an outro. So here are some screen caps of the befores and afters. You got your Vano solenoids right here. Then this is the oil filter housing gasket, much cleaner in the after. We have pics of the oil pan right by the gasket area. Then I have the water pump in front of the oil pan right here, and this is a huge, very big improvement. And lastly, the belly pans. This is a huge improvement here. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed.